We all know that Trump is highly susceptible to flattery. It's kind of his thing, especially when it comes to Vladimir Putin. I mean, just take a look at the way Trump spoke about the praise he received from Putin back during his first term and his 2016 campaign.
Well, if Putin likes Donald Trump, I consider that an asset. Like, for instance, Putin said Trump is brilliant. Putin said Donald Trump is a genius. He's going to be the next great leader of the United States. Putin did call me a genius. I'm going to disavow a statement when somebody calls me a genius. I'm not disavowing anything. My attitude, when people like me, I like them. Even Putin.
I mean, he could hardly shut up about it. And speaking about it in the third person, it's its own level of weird. And that might all explain why Putin was laying it on pretty thick during today's joint press conference. I mean, it was clearly a strategy, praising Trump and the common heritage between Russia and the U.S.
I would like to thank once again my American counterpart for the proposal to travel out here to Alaska. I came out of the plane and I've said, "Good afternoon, dear neighbor. Very good to see you. We're close neighbors, and it's a fact." It's also important that Alaska has to do with our common heritage, common history between Russia and the U.S.
He even got a jab in at Joe Biden in there at some point. But it's all interesting. Joining me now is former UN ambassador and national security advisor under President Obama, Susan Rice. It is an out-of-body experience, I will say, to watch things happen in a way that is so different from how things would have been done in an administration you worked in. And that is even more so, I would bet, for you, given you were the national security advisor. What is your takeaway from the meeting today? What did you make of it?
It was, in short, Jen, a big victory for Vladimir Putin. He walked off his plane onto a red carpet to a clapping Donald Trump and a flyover of American military aircraft, an extremely warm reception, and then they get into the President of the United States limousine, one-on-one with no staff and no interpreters. And Putin apparently speaks good enough English to carry on a conversation. I hope, Jen, that he did not drop a bug in the backseat of the president's limousine as a former KGB chief, because having Putin in that limousine is really quite an extraordinary gesture. And then he lets Putin speak first at the press conference. But the big picture is that this is the end, from Putin's perspective, of his international isolation. He's welcome onto American soil for the first time in almost 2 decades outside of the UN. And he gets a warm welcome from Trump and gave nothing in return, stuck to his hardline positions about Ukraine, and he walks away with no sanctions against him, evading sanctions for the 4th time. He walks away with no ceasefire, vague discussion about an agreement that nobody understands, and he's in a stronger position than when he arrived. And Trump, frankly, it's not clear what he got, except some backhanded BS about how a war wouldn't have happened if Trump had been president, which is something Trump loves to say. And that literally might be the only thing Trump got out of this whole charade.
There was a 3-hour meeting. They clearly discussed something. We learned really nothing during the press conference. The people who matter the most here in this whole discussion are the Ukrainians, who are not a part of this. It's very hard to put back in a box, to your point, the bringing Russia back into the world stage and Vladimir Putin after they've been isolated. But if there were a path forward here, if there were a path toward peace, if there were a path toward a ceasefire, what kind of leverage does the United States have that a president who really wanted to get there could actually use?
Well, the way this should have been done, first of all, this summit should not have been held on U.S. soil. Should have been held in a neutral location if you're going to hold it in the first place. And ideally, obviously, would have had Zelensky present. But if this were meant to be preparatory towards a trilateral with Zelensky, you would want to put the United States and Ukraine in the strongest possible position going in. That would have meant having imposed the secondary sanctions, as well as tariffs that he had threatened and promised multiple times, not just on India, but also on China, which is Russia's biggest trading partner and supplier of military equipment. You would have ramped up military assistance to Ukraine in a very significant and sustained way, and you would have demonstrated at every turn that we remain in lockstep, full square together with our European allies and with the Ukrainians and Zelensky. He really didn't do that. He didn't lay the table to come into that summit from a position of strength and make it very clear to Putin that this was his last and best chance to commit to a ceasefire. Had he done that, we might have seen a different outcome. Hard to tell, but that was the best way to exert the leverage that you asked about.
There would have also been a process led by an actual real national security advisor who had that as a full-time job leading up to a summit where there were negotiations in advance, which clearly didn't happen. One of the other things that was striking, and you were, of course, the national security advisor in 2016, and during that whole period, was that we got news earlier this week that there's evidence that Russia reportedly hacked our federal court system, but there's no evidence that subject even came up. I mean, instead, Trump called the probe of Russian interference a hoax. I bring that up because it's striking to me, but most importantly, I want to know if it's striking to you, given it's the U.S. court system, and it could be significant, it could be serious. They were seeking our data, but that would have normally been, I think, front and center at any president's agenda, probably of either party.
Absolutely. I mean, the cyber crimes of Russia are legion. And of course, in normal circumstances, a responsible president of the United States would bring that up, among other things. Instead, to the extent that they seem to have had an interest in discussing anything beyond Ukraine, which really seemed like an afterthought, they seem to be more interested in discussing how to, restart and improve the bilateral relationship between Russia and the United States. And he brought, his economic team with him, Trump did. And I'm sure that in the conversations among the U.S. and Russian economic teams, there was a lot of discussion about what could be achieved bilaterally on that front, which is, again, a reward for nothing. We've completely let Putin out of the penalty box, and Donald Trump walked away with nothing in return.
Ambassador Susan Rice, always a straight talker, has more experience than almost anyone I know. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.